Would you be able to tell me the name of the country that is dirtier than India, more overcrowded than the subway stations in Tokyo, and more chaotic than anywhere your mind can imagine? If you thought of Bangladesh, you're right. Here, poverty is so extreme that many women see prostitution as the only form of livelihood. But that's just the beginning. On the streets, it's common to see people traveling on the roofs of moving trains, not by choice, but because of the lack of space. Get ready to discover the dark side of Bangladesh that few know about and be amazed. Bangladesh is a small country located in South Asia, but don't be fooled by its size. It occupies a strategic position, almost entirely surrounded by India, with a small border to the southeast with Myanmar and a coastline along the Bay of Bengal. Despite covering a relatively small area of about 147,000 square kilometers, it is a giant when it comes to population. Bangladesh is the 8th most populous country in the world. There are more than 170 million people living there, making it one of the places with the highest population density on the planet. The country stands out for its diversity of traditions, languages, and lifestyles. The streets and markets of Bangladesh are a spectacle in themselves. Stalls full of fruits, spices, and typical dishes that catch anyone's attention. But behind this scene, there is a serious and visible problem: the lack of hygiene. Many street food stalls, popular among locals and tourists, do not have access to treated water. This means that the water used to prepare food or wash utensils comes from contaminated sources, such as polluted rivers or even open sewage flowing on the sidewalks. It's common to see vendors improvising solutions, washing dishes and pans in the same dirty water that flows through the streets. Typical dishes, like the famous fuchkas, crispy balls filled with spices and sauces, and chotpati, a spicy mixture of grains and spices, are delicious and cheap. They are prepared under conditions that pose serious health risks. The food is exposed to heat, dust, and insects, while preparation and cleaning happen without any sanitary precautions. The lack of basic infrastructure in the densely populated markets and streets contributes to the spread of diseases like diarrhea and intestinal infections, which mainly affect children and the elderly. Imagine arriving in a country where, even without speaking the local language, you are greeted with a warm smile and gestures that clearly show you are welcome. This is exactly what happens in Bangladesh. Hospitality there is not just a formality, it's a true tradition. When a tourist sets foot on Bengali soil, the locals' reaction is one of pure curiosity and kindness. It's not difficult to see people waving, inviting you to chat, even if their English is limited, or simply asking where you're from. It's as if the presence of a visitor is a gift, something they make a point of valuing. And it's not only in big cities like Dhaka or Chittagong. In smaller villages, the reception can be even more special. Often, locals invite tourists to have tea in their homes, share a meal, or even participate in a local celebration. They love showing their culture, telling stories, and learning more about those who come from outside. But what stands out the most is that all of this is done without expecting anything in return. It's genuine hospitality, based on the simple joy of hosting someone. And even though living conditions are not always the best, the Bengali people make an effort to ensure that any visitor feels at home. Bangladesh holds an alarming record. It was crowned as the country with the worst air quality in the world. For those arriving in big cities like Dhaka, it doesn't take long to notice. The air feels heavier, and that gray fog that covers the horizon is not just a morning mist, it's pollution. The situation is so critical that, at times, walking through the streets is equivalent to smoking dozens of cigarettes a day. And how did the air get to this point? The answer is a combination of factors. Traffic is one of the main causes. Thousands of old vehicles, such as buses, trucks, and rickshaws, without any emission control, release black smoke every second. But the problem doesn't stop there. The textile industry, one of the country's largest, also plays a huge role. Many factories still operate with outdated technologies, dumping pollutants into the environment without any proper treatment, not to mention the burning of rural areas and the use of coal-fired stoves, which are very common in various regions. The impact of this on the population's health is concerning. Respiratory diseases, allergies, and even heart problems are increasingly frequent. For many people, leaving home without a mask is no longer a matter of precaution, but of survival. The next curiosity will shock you. There is a group of people who live off something that many might not even imagine: hunting for gold in the sewers. These gold hunters literally dive into waters contaminated with garbage, waste, and chemicals in search of tiny gold particles that, by accident, end up in drains, pipes, and riverbanks in the city. For these people, this dangerous job is the only way to survive. On a lucky day, a gold hunter might find enough to provide for their family for a few days. The curious thing is that they know the best spots, times when the streets are quieter, and even the type of waste that might hide little treasures. However, they expose themselves to a highly contaminated environment, where each dive can mean contracting serious diseases. Continuous exposure to this filthy water can cause skin infections, respiratory problems, and dangerous diseases like hepatitis and cholera. Imagine a scenario where traveling by train or boat turns into a true test of courage and endurance. In Bangladesh, public transportation is more than a necessity. It's a daily struggle for millions of people. But what really stands out is how this struggle unfolds. We're not talking about crowded carriages or long queues. We're talking about people climbing onto the roofs of trains, clinging to the sides of buses, and cramming into boats that seem about to sink. During the busiest times, the scenes are impressive. Men, women, and even children balance themselves in spaces that anywhere else would be considered impossible. On the trains, every inch counts. While some squeeze inside the carriages, others risk it on the roof. On the buses, the situation is similar. Overcrowded beyond capacity, it's common to see people hanging outside, holding on as best they can while the vehicle navigates chaotic roads. And when it comes to water transportation, so important in a country crossed by rivers, overcrowding is also the rule. Small boats, often old, carry far more people than they should. Passengers spread across the deck, roof, and edges, ignoring the risks because there's simply no other option. In Bangladesh, prostitution is a reality that often goes unnoticed by the world, but it is part of the daily life in places like DIRTIer, one of the largest red light districts in the country and also one of the most well-known in Asia. DIRTIer is famous for its intense activity and the challenging conditions faced by those who live and work there. Many women are drawn to this reality while still young, some due to a lack of opportunities, others through false promises. Although prostitution is legalized, the environment in which these women live and work is far from safe or fair, with little legal or social assistance to protect them. Society often marginalizes them, making them invisible, even while they play a significant role in an economy that few dare to discuss openly. Cousin marriage in Bangladesh is a practice that, while widely accepted in many regions, generates important debates about culture, tradition, and health. For many families, these unions are a way to strengthen ties, preserve family heritage, and even ensure a certain level of financial stability. However, behind this traditional practice, there are challenges that are often ignored. In several communities, the idea of marrying cousins is deeply ingrained, and the social pressure to follow this norm can be overwhelming. Many marriages are planned from an early age, the goal of keeping the family lineage intact and honoring customs passed down through generations. However, this practice carries risks that are not always openly discussed. Marriages between cousins can increase the chances of genetic and congenital diseases, a reality that already affects some communities in Bangladesh. Conditions such as congenital malformations, neurological problems, and rare diseases can occur more frequently in these unions. Have you ever imagined living in a place where the streets aren't made of asphalt, but of water? In Bangladesh, especially in areas like Dhaka, floating markets turn the rivers into bustling avenues. These markets operate like any traditional fair, with one difference. Everything happens on boats. Fruits, vegetables, fresh fish, and even household items are sold directly from the vessels, while buyers move between them, also in small boats or along the riverbanks. It's a system that connects entire communities in areas where land transportation would be impossible or inefficient. The vendors, many of them farmers or fishermen, arrive with their goods early in the morning, taking advantage of the first hours of the day to ensure the best sales. It's a chaotic scene, yet at the same time fascinating, with boats gently colliding, negotiations happening, and a constant flow of products passing from hand to hand. But these markets are not only a practical solution, they also attract tourists and photographers from all over the world, curious to witness this unique way of life. Despite its charm, the floating markets face challenges such as river pollution and the impact of climate change, which could affect the viability of this tradition in the future. Bangladesh is one of the preferred destinations for large international companies seeking cheap labor, and some of the world's most well-known brands, such as Zara and Primark, have factories in the country. These fashion giants take advantage of this reality, producing millions of clothing items at minimal cost. Inside the factories, the pace is intense and almost relentless. Millions of men, and mostly women, represent around 80% of the workforce, sew non-stop to deliver clothing that will be sold at low prices worldwide. The reality, however, is challenging. Average wages of just around $75 to $100 per month leave workers at the edge of survival, even though they are the pillars of a billion-dollar industry. Working conditions vary greatly. Some factories, particularly those that are concerned with maintaining international certifications, offer safer environments, but others, often linked to outsourced production, do not take the same care. In addition to the low pay, long shifts, which can exceed 12 hours, are common. Workers frequently face pressure to meet absurd targets, and breaks for rest can be scarce. Despite this, for many, this is the only employment opportunity in a country where other options are limited. In Bangladesh, rivers that once sustained entire communities now face a concerning reality. The waters that were once clean and teeming with life are now dark, the strong odor and no sign of fish or other marine life. This change is the result of years of industrial pollution and uncontrolled waste disposal. The problem didn't arise overnight. For decades, factories have dumped chemicals directly into the rivers, while cities and villages have turned these waters into waste and sewage dumps. Over time, pollution has reached alarming levels, making the water dangerous not only for animals, but also for the people living nearby. Communities that relied on fishing to feed themselves or generate income are facing enormous difficulties. With fish nearly extinct, many families have lost their main source of livelihood. Furthermore, those who still use this water in their daily lives are exposed to serious health risks. Waterborne diseases are common, and finding potable water has become an increasing challenge for many people. The situation is a warning for the future. Without urgent measures to clean the rivers and control pollution, the impact will be even greater for future generations. Water, which should be synonymous with life, is becoming a source of suffering and threat. In Bangladesh, you cannot show affection in public because it is seen as disrespectful. It doesn't matter if you are with your partner, a friend, or even family. Holding hands might pass, but anything beyond that will attract uncomfortable stares and even reprimands. So, the best thing is to keep affection for a more private place. Now, regarding what you wear, in Bangladesh, the clothes you choose say a lot about how much you respect the local culture. No short, tight clothes or anything that shows too much skin. Especially for women, it's important to cover the shoulders and knees. The ideal is to wear light clothing that still maintains modesty. For men, short shorts are also not welcome in many places. Believe me, no one wants to be the tourist who draws attention for the wrong reasons. And if you think that throwing a small piece of paper on the ground goes unnoticed, it doesn't. Even with all the chaos in the big cities, littering the streets is frowned upon. It's a matter of respect. So, if you don't find a trash can, hold on to it until you find one. Small gestures like this make a big difference, especially when you're visiting a country that values good conduct so highly. If you've been tempted to visit Bangladesh, you need to experience Pahela Baishak up close. The Bengali New Year isn't just a change of the calendar. It's an explosion of colors, music, food, and an energy you can only find there. Imagine streets completely packed, people everywhere, parades with giant masks, dances, and that party vibe that seems to never end. The center of attention is the capital Dhaka, where the festivities start early in the morning. People leave their homes wearing white clothes with red details. That's the tradition. And no matter where you look, everyone is excited, smiling, singing. The city becomes a true open-air celebration. And there's more. The famous Mangal Shobhajatra, an incredible parade that brings giant effigies of tigers, fish, and other animals to the streets. It's impossible not to be amazed by the size and creativity of these figures, all handmade. It's as if the entire city is celebrating the arrival of something new, full of hope and good vibes. And that's where the video ends. Which of these curiosities did you find the most bizarre? Please share your thoughts on the darker side of Bangladesh in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and leave a like. Your support means a lot to us. Click on the video that's showing on your screen now. I'm sure you'll enjoy the content. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.